That Naturopathic Podcast. TNP.
Hello there.
Hi, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Michelle Pobega, naturopathic doctor.
And I'm Dr. David Miller, ND, and we hear your frustrations. This show is for you.
This show is for you if you're feeling like your current healthcare strategy is not getting to the root cause or the underlying reasons for your health.
This show is for you if you've been told that you're fine, but you definitely don't feel very well.
This show is for you if you're walking out of your doctor's office with 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5 medications without any mention of diet, lifestyle, or a long-term game plan.
This show is for you if you've got several specialists taking care of you, but no one is really putting all the pieces together.
This show is for you if you believe that health should be part of healthcare. These problems have solutions.
We know it.
Our patients know it.
And we want you to know it.
Naturopathic medicine is the solution that you should know about.
Welcome to another episode of That Naturopathic Podcast. Dr. David Miller, ND, here with my esteemed co-host, Dr. Michelle Pobega, ND. What's up?
Hi, Dave. How's it going?
Good.
Good. I ended up investing in this new product line for my own, interests. But then they sent me this really cool sample of a product called Gut Plus from Body Bio, and it's got pre and postbiotics in it. And that was kind of the inspiration for today's talk.
Oh, that's such a smooth little story-based intro to our talk on pre, post, and probiotics. Well done.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I thought you'd appreciate that. And I got to the point more.
You did. It's a big topic. We realized, sort of reviewing some stuff we know and stuff we forgot and stuff we needed to
or maybe
get a little better
learned.
Or that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's a big topic, but we'll try and keep it pretty succinct because it could go you could go off the rails with pre, post, and probiotics.
Mm-hmm. First, I want to chat really quickly about probiotics, and just for the listeners, I mean, this is pretty common now. I feel like this has become a lot more common in people's language. Probiotics are not something that feels very foreign anymore, especially not in the last decade. There's been a lot more research about the benefits of probiotics, etc. So probiotics are live microorganisms that are intended to have health benefits when consumed or even applied to the body. They can be found in yogurt and fermented foods and dietary supplements. But when we think about probiotics, it's meant to support the microbiome that's living inside our gut already. So a lot of good quality probiotics should contain strains that are what's the word? Not foreign, but like that are commensal with the human microflora, essentially. Like that's what a good probiotic should have for the most part. And a lot of these bacteria will help to digest food, destroy disease-causing cells, produce vitamins, and, just like live in harmony with the microbiome to create like a nice, robust microbiota in your gut. Because, as Dave and I have talked in the past, and your gut microbiome is pivotal and key for the health of you as a whole human. We cannot take that for granted.
Yeah, I think that's the key too with the definition is it benefits the host. And so, yeah, like you're saying, the most likely way it's benefiting the host is through, contributing specifically to the microbiota sort of population. But it really just needs to benefit you as the host in some way, which is where the definitions of pre and post and all that sort of get a little bit, there's a bit of overlap there, right? Because they also might just make some end products. Which help us, but
and I find I think one of the problems of a probiotic is that they don't always colonize within the gastrointestinal tract.
Yeah,
a lot of it is transient, and it can help for a temporary period of time. Because every time you poop, you're going to get rid of some kind of bacterial content. So same with a probiotic as like a supplemental form, which is why it's important to nourish that gut microbiome regularly so that whatever's pooped out, there's still enough of the commensal bacteria living within you. And if you're fueling it and nurturing it, then it'll continue to thrive regardless of what you've lost in your feces. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, I got no problem with that.
You,
No
you got
problem
no
with
beef.
that.
You got no beef with that. So most common bacteria that you're going to find in like a probiotic will be from the lactobacillus or the bifidobacterium species. And then some other types of microbes can be used as probiotics, like the lovely and the phenomenal yeast, non-pathogenic yeast known as S. boulardii. Those can have, which can also have a benefit, even though it's not quote unquote a bacteria, it's a non-pathogenic yeast. And then a lot of different bacteria, a lot of different probiotics will have different effects. So some specific types of lactobacilli can help prevent certain illnesses, but it doesn't mean that every strain of lactobacillus is going to prevent that same illness. Like they all have their own strengths. So, there are certain strains that are good to help with like the female vaginal microflora more so than others, like Lactobacilli reuteri and rhamnosus. And there's different ones that are studied for different benefits. So just because it says lactobacillus, it doesn't mean that across the board, they all have the same type of effect on your system.
Yeah, and they're also strain specific, which is when you're getting, I mean, it seems like you're splitting hairs, but it's not. And the comparison I would say is, a Great Dane and a Chihuahua are both the same species, but they're very, very damn different, depending on your purpose. So this is where I can pull out my own hairs.
Please don't.
I got trichotillomania when I'm studying probiotics, but it is sometimes it's worth it to think, should I spend the money or invest in like the strain of that probiotic that has been tested, because a strain can have a certain protein or something that it makes that makes it, that's what makes it have this real probiotic effect.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, you have to split hairs and be strain specific. Like I use, S. boulardii, you brought that up. Floristore is the one that has the most research and it's, very specific. Although I do find in this case, I use another brand of S. boulardii with pretty darn good clinical success with it. So if you're really, really sort of anal person, then strain specific matters, but sometimes it doesn't.
I wanted to say anal, is that pun intended? Because it's connected to your...
So, you know what? Some of the best ones, some of the best ones, they just plop out of me like that.
There's a lot of things that could be plop, anal. We're all it's all in the same zone of topic. So some of the benefits of a probiotic is to help maintain a healthy community of microorganisms, or to help the body's community of microorganisms return to healthier conditions after having been disrupted. So this is where doing things to restore the microflora post antibiotics or post infection is really important. This is also part of where our appendix comes in. It's apparently supposed to be a reservoir of good bacteria to reseed post infection to allow your body to rebalance its microflora. Benefits. A second benefit is to produce substances that have desirable effects on the rest of the body or locally in the digestive system. And then number 3, to influence your body's immune response. Those are 3 very specific activities or mechanisms of action for a probiotic. In addition to some enzymatic activity in producing volatile fatty acids, cell adhesion, cell antagonism, and mucin production. Also, interaction with the gut-brain axis is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. So the mechanisms by which probiotics work, I think these have been added to over the years. I think there was only 4 or 5 before, but I see 6 here from a paper I looked at. Here's the mechanisms, because they can work in different ways. Colonization and normalization of perturbed intestinal microbial communities. That's sort of what we were talking about, but that's not the case with S. boulardii, which doesn't colonize. So probiotics do not have to fit every one of these criteria. These are just different ways. Competitive exclusion of pathogens and bacteriocin production. So sort of competing for space. Some bacteria will be like, hey, I don't like living next to that nasty bacteria, and produce something that other bacteria doesn't like, or, kills it.
S. boulardii is good for that as well, to crowd out.
They actually will like gobble up pathogens. Another way is enzymatic activity and production of volatile fatty acids. So sort of getting into the postbiotic side of things. Cell adhesion, cell antagonism, and mucin production, which you already brought up, mucin production. Modulation of the immune system, that's a big one. And that doesn't have to be a living kind of probiotic either. Probiotic doesn't even have to be living at that point. It can be sort of broken up and still have some influence on the immune system as the body's immune system recognizes some of the proteins, etc., in the probiotic, and then makes adjustments to balance, let's say, of Th1, Th2, or just overall balance of the immune system. And then, like you said, yes, interaction with the brain gut axis is another mechanism of action.
Part of that, it also, I believe our gut bacteria also have an influence with the whole gut-brain axis on the production of like serotonin and GABA and dopamine
totally,
within our digestive system. So that's going to have an influence on that too. And that's where probiotics will also continue to exert their positive effects.
Yes.
Yay. But here's a big thing is that probiotics, say from like a supplement perspective, probiotics alone don't protect your gut. Now, this might feel controversial because like some people will take a probiotic and they will have a benefit of their intestinal symptoms or digestive symptoms. But I'm thinking more long-term, like, because you still, like I was already alluding to before, if they're transient and you eliminate them in your poop and there's nothing, and if you're not doing the things to nourish that microflora, regardless of whether you're taking probiotics or not, then just putting the bacteria back in may just only have temporary positive effects rather than long-term effects, because you still have to attend to the terrain, right? So I think sometimes there is a misconception like that probiotics are going to be like the holy grail to like fixing everyone's gut problems, and that's not really always the case. It could be a part of the puzzle, but it's not going to be in isolation going to just totally protect your gut just in and of itself. And I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, I compare it to like making a nice environment for your kids. Like if you have the environment for a child to thrive, and every child may need a little bit different environment, but some of the basics, the environment is gonna determine a lot. And you can maybe make some analogies with, like, say, think of probiotics as like immigrants coming to your home, right? And so if you haven't created a nice environment that's welcoming, it's got like food for them, it's got other bacteria that they're going to get along with, it's got a sense of
community.
Yeah, no,
seriously,
that's
but
the
I'm
way.
Serious, yeah,
that is the way to look at probiotics, because they're just travelers. They're just coming through, and if there's nowhere for them to stay and it's not a happy place for them to stay, they're just they're not going to colonize if they're supposed to colonize, because, like I said, not all bacteria do, not all probiotics will colonize. But if they're those type, then that's, and therefore a lot of people will have different responses to the same probiotics. Like, Michelle, you and I could take different probiotics and have the same probiotics and have completely different responses, because our microbial fingerprint, because it is that unique, is so different. Some might like you're hanging out with you, and some might like hanging out with me.
It's true. So that's why a probiotic alone is not like the holy grail to protecting your gut, at least not long-term. Short-term, it can make some positive effect for sure. But I think long-term, again, you got to do things to allow it to flourish and work on your behalf.
Yeah. And part of them flourishing will be feeding those probiotics, right?
Indeed. So this brings us to the next topic of prebiotics.
Damn, that was smooth again.
So I'm on. So prebiotics are basically nutrients that are selectively used by host microorganisms, basically the bacteria in the gut, resulting in health benefits. And they are often pretty much present in plant-based fiber-rich foods.
Oh, I got a random thing to say here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm doing it to you. I wonder if this is why some people issues with prebiotics or not prebiotics, issues with colonic foods, which we'll get to. I wonder if that's why some people do so well on the carnivore diet, right? Because there's not as many of these colonic foods. Anyway, we can come back to that later.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with like low FODMAPs and stuff like that too. It's
exactly.
going to be similar,
as an extreme low FODMAP. Yeah.
Right. And I think it makes me wonder is like, are the microbes, is there an imbalance in the microbes so that and more preferential to maybe pathogenic or opportunistic? So then if you don't feed them, you don't get the disruptions in your health, right? Like, I feel like, is that part of, I know I always wonder about the carnivore diet too. I don't know if there's enough for us to know long-term how that's going to affect us. But anyways, prebiotic foods, they can't be digested and they cannot be absorbed through the stomach and the small intestine. So they are very selective foods for maybe a limited number of potentially beneficial native bacteria species in the intestine. So it's selective is the key thing here. They change the microbiota ecosystem towards a healthier composition. This is again back to are you creating an environment that allows these things to thrive? And then it can induce luminal or systemic changes that improve the health of the host. So luminal, like locally or full body. So those are that's prebiotics. And basically they're food for a good gut bacteria. Go team. Like that's like, what's wrong with that, man?
Well, yeah, that's why having a sort of a diverse diet, maybe ideally with lots of different polyphenols, can make a diverse community of probiotics that of colonizing bacteria that really help. Because if you have such a limited diet, you have limited food. If you have limited food for these prebiotics for the bacteria, then you have a limited diversity, and we know diversity is also important as well as density.
Totally. They completely influence the landscape of the gut microbiome. So help like with maintaining or increasing a population of health protective gut bacteria. Right. So it's again, like they should be preferentially feeding the beneficial microbes to allow them to thrive. So again, those probiotics or gut microbiome can then work on crowding out pathogenic bacteria and all the mechanisms of action that we listed before, right? If you starve the good bacteria, then they're not going to really work well on your behalf, basically. So
one sort of cool differentiating thing we found going through some
Dave was really excited about this.
it doesn't make sense why I was that excited, but I like when I find something that I should have known. And one thing that was cool is that prebiotics are a colonic food. The definition of a colonic food is, basically something that promotes the growth or metabolic activity of a number of different bacterial species within the large bowel. However, you'll see there's not a specificity. So prebiotics are colonic foods, but they're all good. They only support the good bacteria. They only support movement towards health for the host. Whereas colonic foods, they sort of like help every kind of not every. They will help non-specifically a whole bunch of different bacteria in the gut. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that includes colonic foods include plant cell wall polysaccharides like cellulose, hemicelluloses, pectins, and many gums.
So like cellulose would be like celery, like the fibrous parts of celery. Am I correct with that? Am I accurate with saying that?
I just never thought of that. That's funny.
So is that why it's called celery? Because it has.
That's why I was laughing. I'm easily amused. Okay.
But am I accurate in saying that? If I'm wrong, whatever. Don't crucify me, guys. So some examples of like prebiotics. So not just colonic specific, but the prebiotic foods that naturally exist are like fructans, including things like inulin and fructooligosaccharides, galacto-oligosaccharides and trans-galacto-oligosaccharides, very long words, resistant starches, as well as just good old oligosaccharides, and then polyphenols and cacao-derived flavanols. And this is where when we go back to that whole conversation we had with Dave Nelson and talking about antioxidants, but not just that, like the polyphenols, he really talked about that in that conversation about alkalinizing the body. And it's through the mechanism of fueling the gut bacteria that then we get the benefits of the alkalinization for the system. And it was through those polyphenols. So again, just reiterating what Dave said, go Dave, Dave Nelson and you, Dave.
Okay. I'll keep going.
Go Team Daves.
Here's some other sort of overall benefits of fructooligosaccharides. Again, there'll be some overlap with the benefits of probiotics in general, because remember, some of the benefits of probiotics include some overlap here. So anyway, fructooligosaccharides produce some enhanced resistance to enteric pathogens, increasing the resistance to colonization of some of the other bacteria by supporting the good guys. So sort of competitively, giving your good guys the food. Increased resistance to infections because of some non-specific stimulation of the immune system, modification of carcinogen metabolism, enhanced absorption of minerals. This is really cool. Couple different ways to help mineral absorption is colonically through prebiotics, and also again through the stomach, improving stomach acid. Improved serum lipid parameters. So if you got cholesterol issues and triglyceride issues, and maybe prebiotics should be in there. Improved satiety, very interesting. Because some people's satiety, although it's largely determined by the stomach, is going to be modulated by prebiotic ingestion, which I found kind of cool. Good thing. I've seen it before, but I forgot. And then just improve metabolic health. So probably some issues with weight, body composition. And again, increased intestinal mucin production, which is, a protectant for us and actually a food for some other bacteria. And trophic effects on the colonic epithelium, meaning it just supports the healthy tissue in the colon.
Mm-hmm. It will often notice on a label of a supplemental probiotic, they will often say FOS as either part of the main list or even as a non-medicinal ingredient, or it'll say FOS free. So the FOS free ones are for the people who are maybe a little bit more sensitive to the prebiotics. It might cause more gas or bloating because there is maybe a dysbiosis or a SIBO or an imbalance of the microbes happening. So too much of a good thing might still be too much of a good thing in that scenario and cause more discomfort and digestive issues. But then you'll often see FOS in a probiotic, so that if you're expecting to have live bacterial cells inside the capsules, there needs to be some fuel to keep them happy. So that's why FOS is often added in there, by the way, just for the non-naturopaths listening.
Should we talk a little about galacto-oligosaccharides?
We could.
Just quickly. Yeah, just quickly. I mean, there's FOS is the most common. So I really wanted to get that one. And that's where chicory and inulin, probably the most common, come in. But GOS are chains of galactose molecules with a glucose molecule attached. They're found in all mammalian milks. So that tells you something interesting about them. And so hence the galacto, because they're galactagogues or whatever. So there's a lot of overlap again with FOS, but here's some of the research shows that they're helpful for bifidobacteria. They're helpful for constipation specifically, atopy or atopic disease, so skin issues, which is very interesting. Irritable bowel syndrome, which I don't know about using that. Whatever, we'll skip over that because the irritable bowel syndrome is just like a whole bunch of different things screwy lumped into one category. Increased resistance to infections, so like some improved immunity, which really makes sense when you think of the origins of it being from milk, from the mother's milk, because the baby mammal doesn't have much of an immune system at that time. So that's an easy way to remember that. Prevention of gastrointestinal infections specifically, so again related to that. Increased absorption of calcium, just promoting skin health and modulating mood and stress response, which is also interesting. I mean, when I think of them as being the origins of them being from mammalian milk, there's a little bit of a pattern there in terms of what they're good for.
There are various like fiber rich containing foods that have array of prebiotics that will have beneficial, that are selective to known beneficial bacteria. So there's like a little bit of a list of things. So like things like asparagus, things like bananas, chicory, garlic, honey, human and cow's milk. I mean, organic cow's milk that hasn't been jacked full of antibiotics and stuff probably would be better. Onions, peas, certain seaweeds and microalgae, sunchokes, tomatoes. Like there's a whole bunch of things that you can eat that are probably already part of your diet that are beginning to provide this. Now, I think there is a key take home though, when you're starting to dose more on a supplemental level though, right, Dave?
Yeah. And so, food first is a good way to go as much as you can. But there, in terms of dosing prebiotics, it's way higher than I would have thought. The golden rule of prescribing is to start low, but slowly increase in the dose over a period of weeks. And it can get quite high. You can get up to, I think it's like up to like 30 grams per day in terms of dosing fructooligosaccharides or galactooligosaccharides, which is quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, start low, just to sort of acclimatize your inhabitants to the new sort of environment and food supply.
So then this brings us to our last. Well, okay, actually, then there are certain supplements out there that are also known as Syn-Biotics. And basically what that means is it's a blend of probiotics with a bit of prebiotics in there. And that's what a Syn-Biotic is. And I just wanted to briefly mention that since we just talked about both of those topics. But now we kind of just want to get into something called postbiotics. And this is where a lot of like the benefits of the first two things that we talked about really come from. It's the postbiotics. It's the metabolic end products.
Yeah.
Right. Of a bacteria, a health promoting bacteria in your gut, eating its fuel, its desired fuels. So.
Yeah. It's like we contract out some of the work to these bugs. That's kind of what it's like. You contract out, say, hey, we can't break this stuff down. You've got the skills to break it down. Can you break it down? And make me some short chain fatty acids? Can you make me some enzymes? Can you make me some B vitamins? Can you make me some vitamin K? Those are some of them. There's other things that they make for us too, but that's kind of what's going on. Is you're saying, we'll give you a place to work and live and all that. And now in return for that, can you make some of these end products that really serve me well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of cool. The end products of a bacteria, a health promoting bacteria in our gut, fueling itself. Like even certain kinds of amino acids are a byproduct of that, or cell surface proteins or antimicrobial peptides are even part of the postbiotics. But I think the biggest shout outs, I mean, I think those are all important, but I think some of the biggest things that shine is the production of vitamin K, various B vitamins, but it's really the short chain fatty acids that seem to be really awesome. So short chain fatty acids are a product of the fermentation of those plant polysaccharides, i.e. prebiotics by the intestinal microbiota. The most well-known ones are like acetic acid, propionic acid, and butyric acids. And
of those, even butyrate probably is the most.
Yeah.
Whatever.
100%. 100%. Because it's kind of like an all-star.
Yeah.
It does some like badass stuff for us. Like it fuels the enterocytes, which are the cells of your intestinal tract. It helps to renew the intestinal epithelium. It can help modulate gene expression. It's kind of amazing how it works locally. But it also has like bigger systemic things where it can help with the immune system. It can help regulate appetite. It can help regulate inflammation. It can help with fat burning. I read somewhere that can help with liver and gallbladder function. I love that. It helps improve your gut function. It controls ammonia. And it also has been shown to have like anti-cancer benefits by creating an environment that doesn't allow cancer cells to be able to thrive in as much, which is pretty freaking wild. So that's why like your gut microbiome is so important, but you also need to create an environment in which that gut microbiome can thrive and then continue to like cyclically support itself and to create these end products, which then creates a better environment. And then it just becomes, you know what I mean? So that's where like chronic use of antibiotics and crappy diets and all these things start to take a hit. on these factors, which is why, we're such big fans of yes, the probiotics, but it's also the pre and the postbiotics that are, and there's some really cool things coming out now too. Like I said, I got a supplement that was prebiotics and has a very specific type of prebiotic, which I'm not going to get into because I feel like I have to look into that more. But it's the postbiotics, like you just get butyric acid and butyrate, right? Like a sodium butyrate to support these, to further facilitate that postbiotic benefits for someone's gut health and systemic health, which is kind of awesome. So I'm starting to see a little bit more of that coming up, but it's still relatively new, butyric acid types of supplements and stuff.
Yeah, it's the name origin comes from butter, which I just find kind of
butter is a source of butyric acid,
which is kind of cool.
Shout out to butter.
So if you had to grossly sort of categorize some of the effects of postbiotics, you could say immunomodulatory, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer, which is, that sort of, let me see.
Just kind of sums up a lot of what most people could use.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Don't underestimate the power of your gut microbiome.
And I've wondered about vitamin K for a while, Michelle, because the body does funny things sometimes, like how we got a lot of people who have maybe like calcification of the intima or whatever of the arteries. At the same time, they got osteoporosis, osteopenia. It's like, well, you've got enough calcium, but you're putting it in the wrong places, which is a big part of what vitamin K seems to do. It seems to direct calcium to the right spots. So when I see people with that, I always wonder about their microbiome now, because we know so much of the vitamin K in us is a result of the postbiotic effect of whatever bacteria we have.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
We tend to, I feel like we often, the thing is I feel like we just have a tendency to get very myopic, and sometimes we just get very stuck in like outdated theories of health where there's so much new stuff coming out. And I wish it was more linear and simplistic, but there's so many moving parts. Like even just this, a lot of times people thought probiotics were the holy grail, and now we're being like, it's like you have to have the food to feed the probiotics that creates the postbiotic, and that's where things shine. It's
but what you were saying about new, well, like I just found a little thing here from one of the papers from 2022. 93% of all papers retrieved on PubMed using the term postbiotic have been occurred since 2018. So it is new,
very new. The idea of postbiotics. We didn't learn about this in school.
Nope.
We learned about the benefits of probiotics, and we knew that they were immunomodulating and they helps with inflammation and blah, blah, blah. But we didn't realize it was the postbiotic end products that were really, I don't think we didn't learn that step, that it's that creates the effects. I mean, yes, the probiotics do some stuff themselves, but it's really the postbiotics that really shine. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Do you feel quite learned in pre, post, pro, and Syn?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I hope our audience does too.
No, I think that was helpful to go through. And I think it's important for people to know the bigger picture with probiotics. It's not just putting the good guys in there. It's all the things you feed them, and it's all the things they do for us.
That's it.
Okay.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Okay. We'll see you next week.